So here's what is at stake this weekend at the Korn Ferry Tour Championship. The player who finishes #1 in the standings will not just get PGA Tour membership, but also starts at the Players and US Open. The top 20 players will all earn PGA Tour membership, and the rest of the players in the 75-man field will at least walk away with fully exempt status on the Korn Ferry Tour for next year. So covering the action this week in Indiana will be our Brently Romine. Brently, let's start with the 20 cards. Until this season, it's traditionally been 30 cards, so much tougher competition to earn promotion. But there is some good news that comes with that. Tell us.
Well, good evening, Anna. I think if you would talk to any player outside the top 50 or so in the world rankings the last year and a half, they would all talk about the diminishing opportunities. And certainly going from 30 to 20 cards, a lot of these guys out here are not fans of that. But when you think about the last 2 years on the PGA Tour in the reorder category, those KFT grads, they didn't get into a lot of open events. They were playing essentially a different tour when it comes down to the amount of FedEx Cups points they were playing for compared to the guys in the signature events. And so when you show up at the Condescent Classic and you're there till Thursday afternoon and you don't get in, that's not good for anyone. So what this does is it makes a PGA Tour card mean something again. For these 20 guys on Sunday evening, when they get that card in their hand, they're going to know that they can play a schedule and book Airbnbs, book travel. They're going to know they're going to get into almost all, maybe all open events next year, 2026 on the PGA Tour.
It is a huge opportunity for those 20 guys, as we say, who will lock up their cards after the weekend. Now, some players have already earned enough points to clinch those cards. Of those players who already have done that, who stands out to you?
So there's 11 guys right now, and we got to start at the top. Johnny Kiefer, he's been arguably one of the hottest players on any level since last summer when he graduated from Baylor. He had a win, 4 runner-up finishes on PGA Tour Americas last summer. Very similar season on the Korn Ferry Tour this year, 2 wins, 2 runners-up. We saw Adrian Dumont de Chassart, Korn Ferry Tour record 33 under last week. He's tour bound. Hank Lebioda, it's hard to believe he won the very first event all the way back in January in the Bahamas. He's going to be headed back to the PGA Tour. College stars, like we've covered throughout the years, Christo Lamprecht, Neil Shipley, and then Pearson Coody. He's number 12 right now. He's not mathematically tour bound, but he's realistically going to be back on the PGA Tour. When I think about Pearson, I see him following maybe a very similar trajectory of Max Homa. I remember Max Homa back in the late 2010s talking about that second time graduating from the Korn Ferry Tour. He appreciated it more. He attended the card ceremony, and Pearson Coody's got top 15, top 20 in the world talent when he's on. Maybe a little appreciation now back on the PGA Tour will help him unlock his game.
So a pretty stress-free week then for those who have already locked up their cards, but a very uneasy week for players on the bubble. Who are those players that we should really be keeping an eye on, Brently?
So speaking of that bubble, I'm pretty curious, Anna, what's going to happen, because traditionally with the 30 cards, we had 3-4 guys churning in and out by Sunday evening. I think we could see maybe a little less, 1 or 2 guys, and that probably plays into the favor of someone like John Vanderlaan, who's 17th right now in points. He's got a really interesting story in that in 5 years as a pro, he's been on the Korn Ferry Tour, has never lost his card. He won 11 times playing D2 golf at Florida Southern, including the 2018 Division II National Championship. And when you think about 2 other guys who are tour bound, Chandler Blanchet, Emilio Gonzalez, they both were top 10 in that 2018 Division II National Championship. And on the outside of the bubble right now, that's these guys trying to play their way in by Sunday evening. Mitchell Meisner, the older brother of Mac Meisner, he's 21 right now. And this is a pretty cool potential story of redemption for Mitchell Meisner. It was here at this event a year ago that he got in his car on Sunday night, drove to Indianapolis, and 5 days later, he was having major wrist surgery, the same wrist surgery that Jordan Spieth had. And so Mitchell Meisner could be a story that we'll all be rooting for once we get later into this weekend.
Yeah, you're always great at bringing us the stories that perhaps we don't know about. One name is the last man in the field, the 75th man in the standings, 18-year-old Blades Brown. I think we've all got to know him just because his name is so cool, but he made the decision to turn pro and skip college. Seems to be paying off. He's already got full Korn Ferry Tour membership locked up for next year. I know you've caught up with him recently, Brently. What did you learn?
Yeah, just a couple hours ago, I talked to him just briefly before he teed off, played 9 holes. It's getting dark here at French Lick right now, but I think Blades is just finishing up on the 9th hole. But look, he mission accomplished from what he set out to do when he announced he was turning pro at the age of 17 at the end of last year. He didn't necessarily want to set high expectations and get a PGA Tour card right away. I mean, that would have been great, right? But he really wanted to learn how to beat these guys and secure some sort of full-time job, and he did just that last week by getting into the top 75, right on the number, right on the nose, and punching his ticket for this week. He made 19 starts this year between the PGA Tour, between the Korn Ferry Tour. But it's kind of interesting because the move to 20. A win for Blades Brown and really anyone from 67 to 75, that won't be good enough to crack the top 20. But there is this sort of game within the game. Blades Brown and those guys from 67 on back could still play for the top 50, which would come with a ticket straight to the final stage of PGA Tour Crucible. And that's big for Blades because a year ago, he missed out at first stage. So guys like Wilson Furr, Cooper Dossie, Shad Tootin, who 2 years ago had that 2-shot penalty at the Korn Ferry Tour Championship to miss out on a PGA Tour card. Those are guys who are all trying to make sure that if they can't get into the top 20, they at least get into the top 50 and are able to compete for those 5 PGA Tour cards up for grabs in December at Dice Valley.
Yeah, basically, no matter where you're sat in this field this week, there is something to play for. Just a quick note on what we might see inside the ropes. Now, last week we saw Adrian Dumont de Chasseur, you mentioned it, a score of 33 under. There were a couple of complaints that the course setup might have been a little bit too easy for a playoff event. What have you heard about that? And what do you think, how have you heard that the course might be set up this week?
Yeah, I had a chance to talk to probably about a half dozen guys about this very issue, if you want to call it that, an issue this afternoon. But these players all want to be on the PGA Tour, and we know that traditionally the setups on tour are tougher than they are at the KFT. I think he had about a dozen winners this year at 20 under or more, 2 in the 30 unders. But they really relish the opportunity and the test that we're going to see at French Lick this week. This course, Anna, tips out at around 8,100 yards. We're not going to play it all the way back, thankfully. But when you look at the winning score last year, Braden Thornberry shot 9 under. That's in line with what most of these guys who are high-level amateur players who have showed success on the pros, that fits their skill set. They like it tough. They've been grinding. They've been fighting all season. Why not go out at perhaps the greatest fight that the Korn Ferry Tour has here at French Lick?
Yeah, it's one of the biggest weeks on the Korn Ferry Tour. If you're a true golf nerd, there are so many storylines to dig into. Brently Romine, thank you so much indeed. We'll see you soon.